But now we're in the second year of his term, and what has really changed in your life? I mean, there's been lots of PR and speeches and smiley-faced signing ceremonies, but I mean, what has changed for you on the ground? You're paying record high prices for gas. Now, before we hear all the excuses about the war in the Middle East, remember, when Prime Minister Harper was in office in 2014, there were two wars in the Middle East, in Iraq and Syria, and there was a war in Ukraine, in Crimea. The oil price was $100 a barrel. And what were gas prices then? About $1.35 a liter, 50 cents cheaper than they are nationwide in Canada today. And today, Americans pay 13% less at the pumps in equivalent terms than do Canadians. So sure, there's been a temporary increase in the oil price as a result of the war, but that does not explain why gas prices are 50 cents a liter higher today than they were when oil prices were the same a decade ago, nor does it explain why we're paying 13% more in Canada under Carney than the Americans are south of the border. The reason is because Carney's disastrous economic policies, which block development and resources, which tax work, and which inflate the cost of living, have given us the worst dollar, 72 cents. A weak dollar means we have less buying power for internationally priced commodities like oil and gas, like foodstuffs. So we're paying more for the weak Carney dollar. We're also paying taxes, more taxes at the pumps. Carney didn't get rid of the carbon tax as he promised. He renamed it, calling it the Clean Fuel Standard. But it's just another name for a Liberal tax that adds another 7 cents a liter. And of course, his government is making even more profit off high prices by collecting GST. Conservatives have said, let's get rid of all taxes for all the year at the pump so that we can bring down the price by 25 cents a liter, $20 a fill up, and $1,200 between now and the end of the year. Higher grocery prices, as Carney has given us the worst grocery price inflation in the G7, with industrial carbon taxes on farm equipment, fertilizer, and food processing, new ridiculous anti-plastic regulations that make food spoil earlier, and inflationary deficits. Mothers are forced to turn back goods at the checkout because their bank account is empty before their grocery carts are. Kids, a quarter of kids go to school hungry after 11 years of Liberal government. And, in fact, this just out, a big breaking story in British Columbia. The United Way did a poll that found that over a third of British Columbians, 35%, have had to change their diets to avoid foods that have become more expensive. 23%, roughly a quarter, said they or a member of their household had to reduce the size of their meals over the past months because they can't afford to eat. A third are stressed that they are more stressed than they were 2 years ago about the cost of groceries, and so that shows that it's worse today than when Carney took office. A third of people say that they're worse off under Carney than they were even under the disastrous Justin Trudeau. And now, when people get home from the grocery store with their bank accounts empty, stressed out from the 2 or 3 jobs they have to do, they get taxed again. If they want to have a drink, Carney's raised the excise tax on beer, liquor, and wine. And if they turn on their Netflix to watch, well, what did we learn this week? The Liberal-appointed CRTC wants to increase taxes on your streaming services. A 15% tax on Canadians streaming Netflix and other online services. A tax on your drink, a tax on the show that you're watching while you enjoy that drink, a tax when you get in the car in the morning to drive to work, a tax on your paycheck. Everywhere you turn, Mark Carney is in your pocket. Conservatives oppose the Netflix tax, and we call on the Carney Liberals to reverse their tax increase and let Canadians enjoy their streaming in peace and affordability. But the reality is that nothing will change under Mark Carney, despite the illusions. It's more tax, more cost, more debt, more of the same. Mark Carney is just another Liberal. And Canadians see it with fleeing investment, jobs, and opportunity. Carney said that he was going to approve resource projects, yet he's kept every single anti-development law in place, C-69, the anti-pipeline law, C-48, the ban on shipping oil off our west coast, The industrial carbon tax, which he announced is going to go up 6 times higher under his plan than it was even under Trudeau. And while there have been many smiley face signing ceremonies for meaningless and unenforceable documents, he's also blocking 500 economic projects that are awaiting federal approvals. He should stop doing photo ops and signing ceremonies and get back to his desk and find a way to stop blocking 500 projects. And now we learn 14 leave-it-in-the-ground Liberal MPs have written a secret letter to Mark Carney telling him to continue blocking resources and raising taxes on Canadian industry. 14 Liberal MPs say the taxes are not even high enough. Now, in fairness to these MPs, I think they all assumed that Mark Carney meant what he wrote in his book Values, where he said that we had to leave half our oil in the ground and broaden and have bigger carbon taxes or the world would burn. That was what Carney wrote in his book Values. Now he's trying to pretend he believes otherwise, and his Liberal MPs are confused about what Mark Carney thinks. They can't even keep track of all the illusions. More division in Liberal ranks as Mark Carney says one thing to his leave-it-in-the-ground Liberal caucus and the opposite to the Canadian people. Not to mention, the Prime Minister stands to benefit from many of the anti-development, anti-oil and gas policies that he has promoted. Just the other day, he gave a speech here in the Vancouver area where he pushed for taxpayer subsidies for heat pumps. What do you know? Brookfield invests in heat pumps. You know, every time Mark Carney talks about giving another handout to corporate insiders, it profits him. His company, Brookfield, is the single biggest tax dodger in Canada, and so he benefits from that as well. It always seems that Liberal insiders and corporate power brokers benefit from Liberal policies and not ordinary hardworking Canadians.